finally, after about 2 months, we were coming under so much pressure, so much demand by the press and all the blogs and all the wannabe ufologists and whatnot were criticizing us for, where's the report, where's the report? We tried to pressure our radar analyst, where is the report? Well, come to find out that this radar analyst was sent from Colorado. Just happens to be the headquarters of MUFON. And he was working in conjunction with Powell, who was on the board. And we uncovered information that they are reporting everything they find directly to the IU, International Director. And they were not about to turn that radar information over to us. So I engaged another consultant, Mr. William Puckett, who's a retired meteorologist, worked for National Weather Service and the EPA and others. He has a long list of credentials. And he requested the same data, and we were about to publish our findings when I guess the powers that be in Colorado decided, well, we better get something out there. And they published this Glenn Schultz, Robert Powell radar report. The report came to the same conclusions that we did. The problem was that it was so flawed, with so many holes and errors in it, as to cast doubt upon the analysts and MUFON. I found that there's any number of ways to hide the truth, and sometimes you can hide it out in the open, okay? Or you can discredit the witness, or you can discredit the source. And in this case, the report ended up discrediting the source. Steve, did you bring that critique of the radar analysis that you were in right now? Is that what you passed out?
Yes.
Okay.
That's what that passed out.
You have to understand that Stephenville was being studied by people with credentials all over the world. It doesn't matter if you and I don't understand a radar report. There are lots of scientists out there who do. And if in your report some of your, let's say your measurements are off by 2 degrees, if your winds are off or in the opposite direction and stronger, and errors repeated one after another in a report of this type, then you lose the credibility. And that's exactly what happened with the Schultz report. Now, when I gave my speech at San Jose, I invited Bill Puckett to come up with his analysis. We reached the same conclusion, but it didn't have the errors. His had been peer-reviewed. The Schultz one had not. Oddly enough, I have copies of my DVD back there from the San Jose speech, available for anybody who'd like it. And we're going to show Bill's analysis later of the second class, which is about 30 minutes long, and we're going to include that with it. But at any rate, when he got up on stage, they cut us short and wouldn't allow him to go through his analysis. So that was problem number 1, I guess. Trying to hide, take away, compartmentalize some of the most important information to come out of Stephenville, and we had to take action on our own to actually discover it. All right, moving along, let's see. Later, how many of you attended the meeting with Dr. Joe Burks a few months ago? Dr. Joseph Burks, I don't see any faces of folks who did. You did? Dr. Joseph Burks worked with Dr. Stephen Greer. Many of you have heard of Dr. Stephen Greer, who heads up the Disclosure Project and has has held national press conferences in the past and had dozens and dozens of witnesses of folks who have held high military government positions who have first-hand knowledge about UFOs and that sort of thing, trying to get the government to come clean about the phenomenon, and hence the name disclosure. Well, in February or so, Dr. Stephen Greer was interviewed on Coast to Coast, and he was asked, what do you think about the Stephenville phenomenon? And his reply was that he felt that it was a watershed event, that it was going to lead governments to take steps to come to full disclosure. And according to Dr. Burks, who was with him and part of a group for 6-8 years, they parted because of different reasons, but in spite of that, he said Dr. Greer has many high contacts in government. He's on a first-name basis with a lot of high-ranking people, and not only our government, but other governments around the world. In other words, the guy is connected. So if he said something like that, he had some knowledge of it. About a week later, our old friend Jim Mars, who many of you have met and know Jim, and he's spoken in front of our group here a number of times, called me, and he said, this was still in the heat of the Stephenville media blitz. And Jim said, I have a friend who tells me that as a result of Stephenville, and what the government already knows, that they're going to hold an emergency meeting at the UN. And behind closed doors to discuss, this. And Jim and I have known each other a long time. Jim is a conspiracy writer, and he has many good contacts, I know that. But sometimes they pan out, sometimes they don't. So I just, make a mental note of it. And went on, with answering reporters and whatnot. On March the 8th, there was an article, I believe it's on the Black Vault website, that was written about the UN president, it wasn't Secretary General, but a meeting of the top of Western nations, alerting them that, they're here, there's nothing we can do about it, and events are going to continue until it becomes undeniable, so you may as well start preparing your populace for it. That was the general message out of the meeting. And that amazingly followed pretty much exactly what Jim had told me was going to be discussed in the meeting. So it turned out he had pretty good insight into the thing. So more and more things were pointing to the fact that there's something substantive to Stephenville, and yet we were running into so many distractions, people who just wanted attention and so forth. Ufologist Linda Moulton Howell came into town, interviewed a couple of people, and went back and put things on her website. Those squiggles that you saw up there that were from the David Caron film, announced that this was the most convincing UFO video she'd ever seen, and those squiggles amounted to hieroglyphics, which were alien transmissions, In my video there for San Jose, we do a complete analysis of that, because it's probably one of